My name is Belinda Pagan. I'm 42 years old and I live in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I work in a machine shop, have for almost 20 years. I'm the kind of woman who shows up early, keeps her head down, and leaves with metal dust on her boots and peace in her chest. I don't need applause. I need my tools, my truck, and a quiet place to come home to. That quiet place mattered because Marcus, my husband, and I built it the hard way. We've been married 13 years. No kids, not because we couldn't, but because we didn't want our lives defined by expectations we never asked for. We wanted stability. We wanted something solid. After years of saving, we bought a modest 2-bedroom house, nothing flashy, but it was ours. Most of the mortgage already paid off. Every wall, every fixture, earned by overtime and restraint. Marcus understood that pride. His younger sister Diana never did. Diana is 35 and allergic to consistency. Every 6 months, she's on the verge of something huge. Drop shipping, crypto, real estate flips without capital, a tech startup that never made it past a logo. She talks fast, promises big, and disappears the moment real work shows up. Jobs never last. Excuses always do. When Marcus and I first got married, Diana still had charm. She could light up a room, make people laugh, convince you she was misunderstood. But charm without accountability rots. Over time, it turned into entitlement, and entitlement into resentment she carried like a quiet blade. 6 months ago, in December, she called me out of nowhere. Marcus was at work. She didn't ask how I was. She launched straight into a pitch. 15 minutes of buzzwords, spreadsheets, and confidence sharpened just enough to sound practiced. She wanted $15,000. She said it was a loan. She said it was safe. She said this time was different. I said no. Not harsh, not emotional, just clear. We had just put serious money into a kitchen remodel. Marcus had taken a temporary pay cut. I wasn't throwing $15,000 into another one of Diana's sure things. There was a long silence. Then she said, colder now. It's not a handout. It's a loan. I reminded her she still owed me $300 from 2019. She hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. What did you say to Diana? Marcus texted. She's blowing up my phone. Then the family group chat exploded. Diana accused me of controlling Marcus, of trying to keep him away from his family. She called me bitter, said I lived like a scared little woman who never took risks. Marcus shut it down immediately, told her she had no right to talk about me that way, told her I was allowed to say no. But something shifted. After that, Diana went silent. No calls, no texts, no apologies. I figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. 3 months later, March, a cold Tuesday. Marcus was out of town at a work conference in Denver. I worked a long shift, grabbed a sandwich, and pulled into our driveway just after dark. The porch light was on. That was wrong. It was on a timer. It shouldn't have been lit yet. I walked up to the door and slid my key into the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. Nothing. I stood there, confused, checking the key, checking the door, checking myself. I knocked. No answer. I called Marcus, straight to voicemail. I texted him. Hey, something's weird. My key isn't working. Did you change the locks? No response. Then the porch light flicked brighter. The door opened a crack. And there was Diana, wearing one of my old work t-shirts, holding one of my beers, standing in my doorway like she belonged there. My stomach dropped. What the hell are you doing here? I asked. She smiled, slow, smug. This isn't your house anymore. What? You made your choice, she said, like she was quoting a movie villain. You turned your back on family. I told her to stop messing around and open the door. She leaned against the frame, still drinking. You refused to help me, so I helped myself. Then she said the words that froze my blood. Marcus said I could stay here anytime. You're the outsider now. And then she shut the door in my face. I stood there staring at it. Rain started coming down, cold, sharp. I kept calling Marcus. No answer. That's when it hit me. She had changed the locks. Later, I'd learned she used a fake ID and forged paperwork to convince a locksmith she was authorized. Diana had gotten very good at fake documents. Scams were her language. But in that moment, all I knew was this. She was inside my house, drinking my beer, wearing my clothes, and I was locked out like a stranger. I felt rage, panic, and something colder underneath. I wasn't about to break a window and get arrested trying to get into my own home. So I did the smart thing. I called Jessica. Jessica and I go way back. She's a cop. I helped her rebuild an old truck last winter. She owed me one. I told her what happened. She didn't ask questions. "I'm 5 minutes away," she said. "I'll bring backup." As I stood there, soaked and shaking, watching the house I built glow warm behind locked doors, one thought kept looping in my head. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't desperation. This was planned, and I was standing at the very beginning of a war I never asked for, but would finish. The first squad car pulled up while rain was still dripping off my collar. Then another. Red and blue lights washed over the front of my house, the house I paid for, slept in, fixed with my own hands, and suddenly it looked like a crime scene instead of a home. Jessica stepped out of her cruiser, calm and solid, the way she always is. She took one look at my face and didn't need me to say a word. "You're the homeowner," she said quietly. I nodded. She walked up the porch steps and knocked, hard. No polite tapping. The kind of knock that carries authority. A few seconds passed. Then the door opened. Diana stood there again, still holding the beer, but the confidence had cracked, just a little. "What's the problem, officer?" she asked, her voice syrupy, rehearsed. Jessica didn't play along. "You don't live here," she said flatly. "You're not on the deed. The homeowner is standing right behind me, and she says you were not invited." Diana's eyes flicked toward me, just for a second. Then she tried to smile again. "My brother said I could stay here any time. You don't get to change the locks on someone else's house," Jessica replied. "You have 5 seconds to step outside or we come in." Diana froze. Then she started talking fast. Family, misunderstandings, promises Marcus supposedly made. She kept saying his name like it was a shield. It didn't work. The officers pushed past her. The next thing I knew, Jessica was pulling Diana out by the arm. Diana screamed, called me controlling, said I was trying to steal her brother, claimed the house was really his. Neighbors started coming out. Phones were raised. Someone was filming. I didn't care. They cuffed her and put her in the back of the car for trespassing and illegal entry. When the cruiser pulled away, the house felt hollow, violated. Marcus flew home that night. He walked in, looked at the changed locks, the mess Diana left behind, and just stood there like the air had been knocked out of him. "I never told her she could do this," he kept saying. "I swear, I never meant..." I believed him. Months earlier, in some offhand conversation, he'd told Diana she could crash in our guest room if she ever hit rock bottom. A brother's words, not permission, not ownership, definitely not exile. Diana had twisted that into entitlement. We went room by room, drawers opened, closets disturbed, the locked file cabinet in our office forced open, personal papers missing, old photos gone, Marcus's watches disappeared, my signed baseball cards from childhood vanished. Then we found the emails. Diana had logged into Marcus's Gmail. She tried to list the house for rent online, Craigslist, photos of our living room, our backyard, calling it a luxury home for professionals. The next day, a man showed up with his teenage daughter, asking about a viewing appointment with Diana. That was when the truth hit me. She wasn't just squatting. She was running a scam out of our house. Marcus blamed himself. I didn't let him spiral. "This isn't your fault," I told him. "Normal people don't expect their own sister to do this." But it didn't stop. A week later, Diana was out on bond. Then we got served. An emergency petition claiming she had residency rights. Fake emails, forged texts, messages supposedly from Marcus saying she could stay as long as she needed. Our lawyer stepped in immediately, but Diana started showing up anyway. sitting in her beat-up green Honda at the end of the street, leaving trash in our driveway. Once, I found one of my missing baseball cards torn in half and shoved into our mailbox. That was the moment fear turned into resolve. Then Marcus's mom called. She'd kicked Diana out days earlier after Diana showed up drunk and violent. And that's when the truth finally surfaced. Diana had been planning this for weeks. If Belinda won't lend me the money, she'd told her mother, I'll move in and force her out. Marcus will take my side. She thought she could break us. She thought wrong. Because at that moment, I realized something terrifying and clarifying. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy, and I was done playing defense. The restraining order took time. Paperwork always does. Until it was finalized, Diana kept hovering at the edges of our lives, like a bad smell that wouldn't dissipate. She never crossed the line far enough to get arrested again, but she made sure we felt watched. That was the point. She'd park at the end of the street, engine off, just sitting there. Sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. When Marcus left for work early, she'd still be there. When I came home late, her car would be gone, but the feeling never was. Marcus tried to hold himself together, but I could see the cracks forming. He replayed every memory he had with her, looking for the moment he should have stepped in harder. I could hear the guilt in his voice when he said things like, I should have seen this coming, or maybe I enabled her. Then the second punch landed. Marcus came home one afternoon, pale and quiet. His company's HR department had called. They told him there had been an anonymous tip claiming he was involved in housing fraud, that he knowingly allowed a criminal to use his home to run scams. They weren't accusing him yet, just conducting a routine inquiry. But in his line of work, that was enough. He was placed on temporary leave pending investigation. Effective immediately. I watched my husband sit at our kitchen table, hands shaking slightly as he set his phone down. And I knew. This was Diana again. She wasn't satisfied with stealing our home for a night. She wasn't satisfied with scaring us. She wanted to destroy us. I called Jessica the moment Marcus went upstairs. She sighed when I told her about HR. I was afraid she'd escalate. Then she said something that made my stomach turn. You're not the only ones, she told me. Diana's pulled cons like this before. Smaller, quieter, almost always against family. They dropped charges, covered for her, moved on. Not this time. That night, while Marcus showered, I opened a drawer in the living room. Inside was Diana's old cracked iPhone, the one she'd left behind the night she was arrested. I'd meant to turn it over to the police, but forgot. There was no lock screen. I powered it on. What I found made my hands go numb. Her notes app was full of plans. Not ideas, plans. Titles like Break-in Bluff, Sibling Leverage, Move House Lockdown Plan, HR Scare Report. Each one had steps, scripts, timelines. She'd written out what to say to the locksmith, how to forge texts, how to play the victim. Screenshots of fake conversations she'd created using a texting app, saved as proof. Venmo receipts, rental deposits, at least 3 victims. Then I saw the list that broke something inside me. Once Belinda is out, file restraining order, claim she's aggressive, fake lease agreement, move into master bedroom, change utilities, new car. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I made copies. I sent everything to Jessica, to our lawyer, to HR. Within 48 hours, Marcus's company cleared him completely. The tip was ruled malicious interference. He was reinstated with full pay and a formal apology. But Diana didn't know we had the phone, so she made her next move. She sued me, claimed emotional distress, physical threats, attached a fake medical report, demanded $50,000. I laughed for the first time in weeks. Then I handed my lawyer the rest of the evidence. That's when the dominoes finally started to fall. Once the evidence was in the open, everything accelerated. What had started as a trespassing charge exploded into something much larger. The district attorney didn't just skim what we submitted, they dug. The fake lease agreements, the forged text messages, the Venmo payments labeled rent and utilities included, the anonymous HR report, the stolen mail, the surveillance footage. This wasn't family drama anymore. This was fraud with intent. Diana was arrested a second time, this time without warning. No chance to spin a story, no time to charm her way out. They picked her up in the parking lot of a rundown motel on the edge of town. Apparently, she'd already gotten into a fight with another guest the night before. When the police ran her name, the warrants were already waiting. I didn't feel satisfaction watching the body cam footage later. I felt relief. At her arraignment, Marcus and I sat behind the prosecution. Diana shuffled in wearing an oversized hoodie and mismatched sneakers. The confidence was gone. She didn't look dangerous anymore. She looked small. When the judge read the charges, identity theft, credit card fraud, attempted real estate fraud, harassment, defamation, filing false reports, Diana didn't respond. She just stared at me. The judge denied bail, called her a repeat manipulator with an escalating pattern of abuse. That should have been the end of it, but I wasn't done. We filed a civil suit for damages, legal fees, stolen property, emotional distress, lost work hours, defamation. Diana didn't even show up. We won $42,000. She didn't have the money, or so she thought. During the process, we uncovered an inheritance from her grandmother, tied up in probate for years, just recently released. We filed the lien. 4 months later, every penny of that inheritance went straight to the judgment. I didn't keep a dime. Marcus donated most of it to a charity that helps victims of family fraud. He said if someone had held Diana accountable sooner, maybe she wouldn't have become this. Her video, the one of her being dragged out of our house, went viral. Landlord groups, scam forums, local news. Her name became searchable, permanent. And then the final wave hit. Federal investigators contacted us. Diana hadn't just scammed people in Pennsylvania. She'd been running fake rental listings across state lines. 12 confirmed victims. Over $28,000 stolen. Federal charges were added. Her sentence doubled. When the judge read it out, Diana finally cried. But I didn't feel triumph. I felt closure. Because she hadn't lost a war. She'd lost the right to ever do this again. 6 months into Diana's sentence, the phone rang while Marcus and I were eating dinner. It was Jessica. The FBI had officially taken over part of the case. Diana's rental scams crossed state lines. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. At least 12 confirmed victims. Families who sent deposits for homes that never existed. Money they couldn't afford to lose. Some testified in person, others over video. Marcus and I attended a few of the hearings. One woman had to move back in with her abusive ex after losing her deposit. A college student missed enrollment deadlines, trying to scrape together tuition again. Listening to them made something settle in my chest. This damage was never just about us. The psychological evaluation came back during the federal proceedings. Antisocial personality disorder. Narcissistic traits. No genuine remorse, only anger at being caught. Even in custody, Diana kept manipulating. Gambling schemes, lies, letters. Some threatened me. Others begged Marcus to visit her, claiming she'd found God. We forwarded everything to our lawyer. Her sentence was extended. Life, meanwhile, moved forward. I was promoted to shift supervisor. Marcus was given a major client account. We took our first real vacation in years. We adopted a German Shepherd named Tank, sweet with friends, terrifying to strangers. We set boundaries with Marcus's family. His mother eventually sought therapy. She stopped asking us to fix Diana. Our home became quiet again. One evening, Marcus sat beside me and said, "If you hadn't stood your ground, she would have broken us." I thought about the rain, the locked door, her voice telling me I wasn't family. This was never about money, I said. It was about control. I used to believe family meant obligation. Now I know better. Family is earned, and peace, real peace, is something you defend.